Hello and welcome back to my Astro Imaging Journey channel. Today I want to discuss the off-axis guider and the prism in particular, and didn't really make it clear in the unboxing video. I'll show you here in a second. The prism, while it's 12.8 millimeters square, the viewport is a round circle. So let me see if I can get this in here. Okay, see how we have that nice circle in the prism? That got me a little curious as to whether or not my sensor will be able to be fully utilized in the guide camera. So what I'm going to put up right here is an image, which I have a couple printouts of, is basically a graphical representation of that. I went into draw.io and was able to scale this in so it's pretty close to the actual sizes, or at least blown up. And so what we have is the square, the black square represents the prism, and then the white circle represents that field of view, that viewport, and then the green rectangle is the sensor. So as you can see, I'll probably get a little bit of vignetting on the side, but by and large, I'll be able to fully utilize that sensor for the most part. So that's the good part. However, now up on the screen, right here, you should see a representation of the field of view for the SCT. So the large black box is just there. It's roughly 42 millimeters is the field of view for the Edge HT 11-inch. So that black box is representative of that 42 millimeters. The large white circle in the middle is that field of view, that 42 millimeter field of view. In the center, the red rectangle is my APS-C sensor on my camera. So definitely fits within that field of view. We know that because I've been using it for the past year and a half, 2 years now. The black rectangle in the middle that encompasses the red sensor is what if I had a full frame camera. That's the sensor size there. So if I was to move to a full frame camera, a full frame sensor that is, then we could see that it would be cut off in the corners, maybe a little vignetting, but nothing we couldn't work with. But it gives me a sense of where is this off-axis guider going to sit? Where does that prism set? Well, I got my calipers out and I measured this, from the prism to the edge and how big that housing is, and did a little math and determined that the bottom of the prism sits approximately 11.5 millimeters from the center of the sensor. So what we have here on the top and the bottom are the same prism representation I showed earlier, one with the sensor perpendicular to my imaging sensor, as well as one that's perpendicular, which is at the bottom. And what you can see, if I can zoom in here, is if I keep it where it's at and I go parallel to my current sensor, then I'll be clipping the very top of the sensor on the guide camera. And if I go perpendicular to my sensor, then I will be clipping the bottom part of that sensor there, at least in this image. So the question is, do I move that prism down a little bit so I can fully encompass that prism and the guide sensor inside that field of view, or do I leave it where it's at because one day I might go to a larger imaging sensor? And as you can see where it's at right now, with that full frame box, the prism would just be entering that frame where it's at now. So do I move it now, or do I not move it and not have to worry about it later? Because if I move it now, then I might have to move it in the future and end up being where I'm at right now, where I'd be cutting off some of the sensors. So I hope this gives you some idea of some of the dilemma we have with these SCTs and the longer focal lengths. Not only are we going to have trouble finding a guide star possibly, but if we end up clipping some of the usable sensor footprint, then it's going to be a tough one. So what I think I'm going to do is I'm going to leave it the way it is right now. I'm not going to move it at all. The Celestron OAG does have, the prism is movable in and out. So we could reposition it later if I wanted to. And I'm going to be installing it during the day. And I'm hoping that against the bright sky, I'll be able to look in there and see in that circle, the prism circle, the field of view for the prism, if I'm going to get any cutoff, any vignetting. Might not be as bad as I'm thinking. That 42 millimeter might be the inside diameter of that, of what the actual field of view might be, and outside of that might be where we get some field curvature or what have you. So it might work for me, but I'm definitely thinking that I'll probably want to go parallel. I've read that some people recommend going perpendicular to your sensor, but based off this representation, I'm thinking I might want to go parallel to my sensor. So we'll see how this all plays out. Hopefully I get to install this tomorrow. But I just wanted to throw this together real quick just to let you guys see how my thought process is, and maybe you'll be able to use something like this in your calculations on what will work for you. Again, what I used for this was draw.io. It's a website. Allows you to go in there. It has a nice little grid pattern on the back, and so you can line things up, and when you get things centered on each other, it creates a nice little crosshair, so you can make sure everything's nice and centered. And you can go in there, and I used a factor of 10. So if for example, that SCT field of view is 42 millimeters, I just created that circle at 42 or 420. Just multiplied it by 10, and that made the image workable on the screen. So, use it to your advantage. There's plenty of tools out there. It's one that I like to use when I'm at work for some of my network stuff. So it was useful here. But who knows? Maybe this will help you out too. And once I get this installed, again, hopefully tomorrow, it's supposed to be nice and clear, and I can get this installed tomorrow. And if it's clear tomorrow night, I'll actually be able to do a first use as well. So hopefully, fingers are crossed that I'll be able to put this theory into practice and see how close I was with this. So with that, I want to say thank you for watching. Stick around for the outro. As always, clear skies. Have a good one. Thanks for watching yet another episode from the Astro Imaging Journey channel. Really appreciate your viewership. In our upper right, we have the latest video that I have posted prior to this one. Down in the lower right, we have what YouTube thinks you will enjoy. Below is a subscription link. Please hit that like button, subscribe if you so choose, ring that bell if you want to get notified of something new, and as always, thank you, clear skies. Remember to